by the mystery box below me is my co-host, Mr. McCain, and we are the tag team champions of Interactive
Yes,
Sports
sir.
Talk. So cool, man. I know got a lot to talk about tonight. We're running a little bit late, so I want to kind of jump right on into it. But before we do, man, I do feel like we need to go ahead and give a proper introduction to the people, let them know who we are. The play caller. Yes, sir. So yeah, man, let's just go ahead and jump on into this tonight, man. So
Let's get it.
what do you want to talk about first? Some football, some basketball. What are we talking tonight? What's good?
I'm following you tonight, man. Whatever you want to talk about, let's get it.
Okay. Well, I know you know you or in the show notes, man, you have sent me a couple things you want to talk about tonight, and one of which is the Nets coaching decision. So tell me your thoughts on it. What's going on?
So it's really interesting. We heard all these sources say that they were gonna hire Ime Udoka, right?
Hmm.
And then they kind of did a sneak move, smoke screen, and slid and went ahead and made the number one assistant, Jacques Vaughn, the head coach. It makes a
Right.
lot of sense because Udoka's already got the situation at his
Hmm.
other job. I mean, I did say that if they did suspend him for the year, or if they actually, just fired him, he would get another job. I think the main thing that went into it was the suspension, right? Because how can you be suspended for one team and reasonably go coach another team in the same league?
Yeah.
So I think that ended up being a big part of it. But I think John Vaughn was actually the right hire. He knows the players. He has experience coaching, at least as an assistant on the NBA level, and he's coached in college, so he has a background of coaching, unlike their former coach who had less experience coaching than me.
Yeah.
So I think getting someone that has experience, someone that the players respect, that Kevin Durant listens to, that has an understanding of what needs to actually happen to make the team better, which we're seeing in the standings now. They're moving up now that they have an actual head coach. I think it was the right move. You at least let him finish out the season, right? I know they
Hmm.
did. I did hear that I think they signed him to like a 2-year extension, or they're working on some type of extension for him
Yeah.
at a
It
head
goes
coach's
through next
salary.
season. Yeah.
And I don't think they really want to get with this situation. If I work out, make a move back to, originally get it up.
So you sounds like you're going through a bad area over there. We lost your audio there for a second. All right, may just be without a cool here for a few minutes. It might be just going through a bad spot out down the road. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah. I think you just went through a bad spot out there. We
Okay.
lost you. You're saying that they're moving up in the rankings now. They got a real head coach, and then we
Yeah.
kind
I
of
mean,
lost you.
yeah. I was just saying, you got a real head coach, so you have an opportunity to actually go out there and execute and play good basketball now. You sign him, you give him a little bit of an extension, a little bit more money as a head coach. You give him a couple years. You can't have a head coach only have a 1-year deal. Like, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
But you see what he does in the rest of the season, next season. If he ends up not being your guy, Udoka's probably going to still be out there available. And then, you can make the move you wanted to make, but it didn't really make sense to make it. And I was curious how it was going to go. But if they were going to do it, I was going to sit back and watch.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a slightly different approach here. I agree with you in terms of I think that it was a good hire. I think that it made a lot of sense for them to go that route. What I want to address is something we talk about quite a bit on the show, which is all these reports that get put out, right? Because let's be honest, it didn't take you being an NBA insider to put two and two together and say, here's a coach who is currently suspended, who might be available, that just took his team to the NBA Finals last year, And this is a team, obviously, in Brooklyn who has some expectations of what they want to do. And so you can easily link the two of them together and say, oh, this is who they're considering hiring. The reality is, though, we don't know that. We don't know that they ever seriously considered him. And even if they did consider him, we don't know how far into negotiations or conversations that might have gotten. I mean, they could have called up Boston and Boston said, yeah, but you have to give us this. They could have called the league up and the league said, look, we know that a lot of the information about what happens is not out publicly, but this is what happened. And they're like, oh, yeah, we're not touching that with a 10-foot pole, right? You don't know. There's a lot of details we don't know. So I find it funny that these reports always come out and it's always like, oh, this is what's going on, this is what's going on. And then there's an assumption that, oh, they settled for this other person, right? Because when you look at it from that standpoint of like, oh, they had a guy who took his team to the finals last year, but now they settled for this assistant coach. And to me, that's part of the problem with these rumors that get started up because we don't even know if it's true. At the end of the day, they made a hire that made sense. There's already enough drama around that team. You didn't need to bring in more drama because it's not like everybody talks about the Kyrie situation. It's not just Kyrie though. This goes all the way
It's
back to
definitely not.
when you try to bring in James Harden and everything else. Like this is a problem on multiple levels. Bringing in Steve Nash as your coach. I mean, it's like hiring Jeff Saturday to be your coach. Too soon? Too soon?
Oh, we're gonna talk about that as well for sure. But I will say this on Jeff Saturday, he was a head coach at a high school, so he already has 3 times as much experience as Steve Nash. But you know how the most ridiculous thing ever. Just he didn't have experience. You should have brought him in as like a coach on the staff and not to get some.
You must be like in a really bad spot, man, because you're breaking up real bad. I can't hear anything you're saying. See, we get cool back here in just a minute because I have no idea what he was about to bring up or what point he was about to make. It looks like he logged out, so he'll probably be logging back in. Back.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. You must be in
I'm back.
some.
Hey man, things happen.
Yeah.
But I was just saying, really, man, the big thing about it is you made a good hire that keeps the team together. You've got some other problems on the team, one that we're going to talk about here in a few moments. But Garnett's playing well. The team's flourishing under Vaughn. That's what you want. Now the question becomes 10, 15 games down the road, is it still flourishing, or is it just that he brings an actual philosophy that wasn't there before, rather than just everybody shoot the ball and then get the ball to KD when things get bad? We have actual philosophy and coach don't actually like that's the other thing that catch up to it now.
Yeah, I mean, man, the thing is, I feel like when you look at the hire, right? All you can base off right now in this moment is does it make sense today, right? And since he's taken over, they're 2-2, which isn't. It's not like they're 4-0 since he took over or anything like that. So there's certainly some reason for people to maybe have a little bit of criticism or whatever. But 4 games obviously isn't a large enough sample size for you to base much of anything off of. But I do think it's important to people to remember that he is an assistant coach on the team. So they have actually gotten a chance to see day by day what he looks like as a coach. They have a much larger sample size of what they expect out of him than what we have based on a 4-game period. And I think that's something that it tends to get overlooked a little bit.
Yeah, I will say this. I know we live in a "what have you done for me lately" world and all that good stuff. But I think just by the fact of who he's replacing and what's happening right now, I think he's good for a while. Like, you know what I'm saying? Even for the media, I think he's good for a while. He's got a little bit of time to get it together because that was what we all call the Brooklyn mess. So he's gonna get a little bit of time.
Yeah. I think he'll get a little bit of time. Now, I mean, in this day and age, we'll see how long that period of time actually is. Will it be 10 games? Will it be 20 games? Will it be 50 games? I mean, we'll see because it all obviously is going to depend a lot on how the season goes, how that win and loss record starts to tally up.
Facts.
Yeah, because I mean that's not a job that you're gonna get a whole lot of leeway.
I mean, yeah, you're only gonna get so much, but like I say, man, when you're coming in for someone who was doing such a poor job, I think you get a little bit extra. You know what I'm saying? A little bit extra leash just because it's like, look, you're gonna be better than what was happening anyway. So we may as well go on ride with you and let you do your thing. And I think that's the benefit. Now, if he was dropping into this straight off of like the beginning of the season, and we hadn't had all this foolishness going around, then I think we're looking at a different situation.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you one thing that I like about it is think about the fact that he was already in the building. He was already on the staff, right? And we know that Steve Nash basically told the GM when he came to him like, hey, you need to talk to these guys. They're like, they won't even listen to me, right? I mean, Steve Nash said that himself, so we know that he had pretty much lost that locker room. And sometimes, it's easy for the whole coaching staff to lose the locker room. So the fact that they went ahead and hired him and not just, left him as the interim coach, but actually went and hired him and said, we're going to give you at least the 2 years here, to me says that he was at least the one person. There might have been more, but he was at least the one person on that staff that they felt like the players actually still had some respect for and would still listen to. Because if he was in the same boat as Steve Nash, then I would hope that you wouldn't have hired him.
I just feel like you can't have any less respect for somebody than they have for Steve Nash.
I mean, I would say you could have like Russell Westbrook level of respect for Frank Vogel. That would be a little less.
I don't know, man. Russell Westbrook never yelled at Frank Vogel.
Yeah, he did.
I don't remember hearing about Russ yelling at Frank Vogel.
He did. I trust me.
They were well, we know he never heckled Frank Vogel. They literally were heckling their head coach.
I will give you there was no heckling involved, or at least not that I'm aware of. But yeah, man. I mean, we'll see what the hell it turns out. But I do think that it was a good hire, and we have to acknowledge the fact that right now he's out there playing without Kyrie, or out there coaching without Kyrie rather, and we don't know how much longer he's going to be out. Originally, it was a 5-game suspension. He's already missed 4 games. There's already talk about he might be out for the 4-game stretch they're about to hit, at least. So, I mean, we'll see, and then it'll be very interesting to see once Kyrie does get back on the court, what does this team look like? Do they get better or do they get worse? Because right now they're winning more games without Kyrie than they were winning with him.
Well, sir, that's a great segue into something else we can discuss.
By all means.
There's a couple. Yeah, there's a couple of other guys there. Kyrie being one,
Hmm.
and another one being Ben Simmons.
Hmm.
That tough. Now, also when we talk about Ben Simmons, I want to go ahead and throw Pat Bev in there because they're basically the same player right now.
Okay.
So I want to go ahead and kill two half dead birds with one stone.
Okay.
But before we get to that, my thoughts on Kyrie is this: Kyrie is a great offensive player. Kyrie has never bought into defense everywhere that he's played. Kyrie kind of goes to the beat of his own drum, which is the antithesis of team basketball.
Hmm.
So I'm not surprised that they're better without Kyrie. because now you have guys out there that are bought into at least give effort on the defensive end.
Yeah.
If you've got Kyrie out there, you're playing 4-on-5 defensively. I'm not saying he won't go down and stand there, but it's about all he's doing. And it's not a knock, but that's who he's been his whole career. That's one of the reasons why when we talk about some of the greatest point guards ever, his name doesn't get brought up. You talk about the greatest handles, his name gets brought up. You talk about great passing, his name gets brought up. But we talk about great overall point guards, we never bring his name up. Because you have to at least give effort on the other side. I'll put it to you like this. And I've said on this show, since we've been doing it before, I don't think Steph Curry gives much defensively, right?
Mhm.
But he'll at least get in front of his man, put his hands up, try to play defense.
Yeah.
I don't even see Kyrie doing that much.
Right.
So you're going to be better when you have a guy like that is no longer part of the team, at least temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
And what this also does is it drives down the value for Kyrie if you want to trade him, because we see the Brooklyn mess ain't as much of a mess without Steve Nash and Kyrie.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see like which one of those is really the bigger impact, though, right? I mean, because that's kind of a question right now. I mean, it may have been both, but we'll find out here pretty soon.
We definitely will. Now, on to my thoughts on one Ben Simmons and Pat Bev. The offensive output from these gentlemen is disgusting. The lack of willingness to be a player on the team offensively is disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
The lack of desire, wanting to, just attempting to be anything offensively is a joke.
Yeah.
And while we talk bad about, while I say like, oh, Kyrie needs to do something on defense, at least if he goes down and gets burnt for 20 points, he can go down and burn somebody for 30 points, so at least it's a plus 10.
Yeah.
I don't care how great of a defensive player you are, you're going to get scored on. If I can't put trust in the fact that you could at least match 10 points if you scored on 10 times, like 5 times, right? Or however many points you get scored on, you can't at least match that offensively, you kind of at a point become a liability. Especially if you get deeper into the regular season in this crazy place called the playoffs. The playoffs.
Playoffs? Talk about playoffs?
Right. But if you get there, guys like that, you can't have them in a rotation. You're going to have to limit their minutes off the bench, little spurts to give energy, maybe, get on somebody when they're a little tired and just harass them. But that's not a guy you want to pay all the money, especially the money that you're paying Ben Simmons. Pat Bev is getting a contract that's more along the lines of what he actually can do now, which is just play defense and be a gnat and maybe score a bucket or two every once in a while. Mm-hmm. But Ben Simmons is getting paid like he's a great player. And when you are only a defensive player, you're not a great player. And you can talk about his passing skills. Oh, that's cute. You can talk about his rebound. He's 6'11". He should be able to rebound. He cannot put the ball in the basket unless it's a dunk or a layup, and then he can't even do that every time.
Yeah.
That's a huger problem than anything else. And the only way, in my opinion, to get rid of the problem, I have a very simple solution. Flex his hind parts right on out of there. Pay him to go sit at home or do whatever he wants to do. Because him being there is not a positive. It's a detriment. I would suck it up, take the L, get my money down the road, and keep it moving.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, man, it's funny because we will criticize guys all the time for being, only concerned about offense and not playing on defense. We criticize that all the time. And I think that, it's deservingly so, because most of the time those guys are superstar players offensively, right? And we're like, well,
Right.
If you're going to be a superstar offensively, at least give some effort on the defensive end. I'm not expecting you to necessarily be an all NBA first team defender, but, at least give some effort. But, if you're going to go out there and not be a guy who can put up points, man, you better be a lockdown defender. You know what I mean? Like, you can't be out there like letting anybody put up points on you if you're not going to put up any kind of points yourself. And I mean, I agree with you. I don't think we criticize those guys enough for the lack of offensive production, especially on nights where they're not playing great defense.
Yeah, they call it 3 and D for a reason. They want you to play defense, but they at least want you to hit some threes. Ben Simmons ain't hitting nothing out there. Okay, like And then Pat Bev.
Mhm.
I mean, who didn't see this coming?
Yeah.
He's pretty much what Denny Green said. He is who we thought he was. Right?
Yeah.
It's literally who he is.
Hmm. I mean, I feel like, these guys, at least Pat Bev will hit an occasional shot, but
Yeah,
not enough
he'll
to,
shoot a shot.
yeah. Yeah, at least he'll take the shot, right? At least he won't like be 2 feet from the basket passing the ball out to somebody else.
Right? Every time, Ben Simmons has like 8 rebounds, 11 assists. It's not a great thing.
Yeah. I mean,
You getting double doubles without getting points. Come on, man.
I don't know what else. I mean, honestly, I'm just
Come on, man.
honestly surprised the dude, be back on the court at all, man. I was starting to think he was never gonna actually get on the court.
Hmm.
Thought we saw the last of Ben Simmons,
Well, he
except for
want that
in
money.
street
You know what I'm
clothes.
saying?
Yeah, look,
Nah, he want that bread.
except for in street clothes, he spent more time in street clothes than Anthony Davis.
But we didn't call him street clothes because at least Davis does play sometimes. Like to be street clothes means you are there and you playing sometimes and then you hurt sometimes. Ben Simmons is just a whole different animal.
Ben
Call
Simmons,
him the quitter.
Ben Simmons ain't ever changed out of the arrival outfit. The
Right.
dude show up and lead the game in the same condition. Oh
Yep.
man. So yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, basketball's starting to kind of get into a little bit. Any any particularly surprising teams to you so far at this point in the season? No, it's still pretty early, but
The Utah Jazz. The Utah Jazz are the biggest surprise I remember in the NBA since I've been watching. They're the number one team in the West. They traded away their 2 best players. Got draft picks, got young. Traded away the 2 best players, and they brought in the guy Lauri Markkanen back in the trade from Cleveland, who has been a revelation on this team. He's their best player, and he's pulling them up and making them a decent team. They're going to have a lot of draft picks, so they're going to be able to add a lot of top quality talent in the next 4 or 5 years. But I'm very impressed with what Utah's done. We know about Jordan Clarkson. We know about Mike Conley Jr. They've got some other guys. I don't care if you're a Utah Jazz fan and tells you that Utah Jazz is not the biggest surprise in the NBA. They are a habitual liar.
yeah. I mean, but I will say this about the Jazz. I'm not going to sit in here and say that I expected this by any means, but I do think that it's valid to point out something that we've talked about for a couple of years now, which is you had clearly going back to the whole COVID thing, a lot of animosity between your two biggest stars, and it's amazing how getting that negativity out of the building seems to be having a really positive impact on the team.
Yeah, I think marketing was a steal in that whole transaction. And I thought that from when the transaction happened. Because sometimes you give a guy that opportunity that he may not have had somewhere else,
Hmm.
and he flourishes. And I
Yeah.
think that's what we're getting. We're getting some guys going over there that now getting a chance they may not have gotten in other places, and they show, hey, I can step up and do this. I'm well prepared. I'm an NBA player too. I just
Yeah.
needed the right opportunity. So if they can continue to be off season, like they're gonna fall back to the mean with the
Hmm.
lineup they have now and the draft pick capital they're gonna have first from Cleveland and first from Minnesota for a couple of years. Dude,
Yeah.
they could be
Yeah. I
dangerouser
mean,
than they were before.
yeah, and here's the thing for them is, let's imagine that they end up falling off a little bit, right? Like, let's say that they don't maintain this and they fall off, and they put themselves in position to be a lottery team themselves.
Now that
The
would be
fact that
ridiculous.
you know what I'm saying? It's like so there now you got a team that's starting to learn how to play a little bit better, and they get to go add, all these first round draft picks, lottery picks, because we don't know what those other picks gonna turn into just yet. So, I mean, yeah, that could be crazy. They could really be setting themselves up light, real
Yep.
nice. So,
Dwayne Wade is somewhere smiling.
Dwayne Wade's like, yes, this was the plan all along, right here. This is exactly what we were trying to do.
And he's a habitual liar for saying that too. He didn't know it was gonna work out either.
Habitual line steppers, man. Habitual line steppers up in here. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So real quick, man. Shift gears over to the NFL because it's kind of a crazy week out there right now. Got some pretty big injuries actually to talk about in the NFL this week that could have an impact on this week's games.
Yeah.
Obviously, a big story this week is Josh Allen in his elbow. So they said they spotted him at practice. He didn't have a sleeve on, and as soon as he saw the media, he like picked up his stuff and got up off the field. So to me, that sounds like he's probably gonna be able to play, and they were hoping to kind of keep it a secret until the last minute.
Well, I could say if you're, and this was a quote from the local media here in Charlotte. So if it's incorrect, this is a quote that I got directly from them. They said that he's hour to hour.
Yeah.
So what
Which I don't even know.
exactly in the world does that mean? Either the
I don't
man.
get-
So I heard it.
I-
I'm like, what? Hour to hour? I've never heard that before.
Yeah. he's
Congratulations,
hour to hour,
Buffalo.
man.
You put out a new one. You put out a
He's
new
hour
one.
to hour.
Not day to day. Hour to hour.
He's hour to hour.
But I think the thing is, man, how he feels on game day, right? We can go through
Yeah.
speculation all week. It's going to be how he feels on game day.
Yeah.
And the other problem I see for it is if you have any type of injury to your arm, we all know what's going to happen. As soon as you go out there and you start throwing, that arm is going to get hit.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're less than 100%, Josh Allen, tell you right now, bro, it's in your throwing elbow. You need to chill, bro. Sit it on down. I mean, I know you want to win and you want to help your team, but you're going to help them more long term by sitting until you can get that arm right than playing and getting hurt and being done for the season.
Yeah.
I don't know which way they're going to go, but this is another one of those Tua situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got a guy that you really should sit. Like, there shouldn't even be a speculation. You should sit him this week. And I get why you may want to, I'm going to use a Stephen A. Smith term. You may want to bloviate what you're doing, and not allow people to understand exactly what the plan is.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, this man does not need to play this week with that injury. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I get it. You want to win games, whatever, but the long-term health of your quarterback is more important. This is his throwing arm. This ain't even his head. This is his throwing arm.
Yep.
That gets hurt again, man, and dudes are going to hit him. If he falls, they're gonna try to drop him on it. They're gonna try to beat that arm up, man. So the thing is, you should keep him out unless you're gonna give him one. The only way I say you play him, and this is probably not a good idea either, but if you're gonna give him one of them braces like Devontae Smith had on his arm last year, I don't think you can throw with that thing though.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my thing, man, is I agree with you that unless he is 100%, so I don't know if what is that, like 5 minutes to 5 minutes instead of hour by hour? I don't know.
Yeah, if you hour to hour, I don't believe you 100%.
Yeah. So if unless he's 100%, or I mean, look, I mean, let's qualify this. When we say 100%, nobody probably is 100% this time of year, but like you got to really like know that elbow is going to be able to take that punishment, right? And if you're not sure about that,
Right.
don't put him out there. Like, even if you lose this game, I understand Kansas City's right there. You're trying to, battle them back and forth, hoping to get that 1 seed and all that kind of stuff. But you can't do it. You can't risk the health of Josh Allen, because if he goes out there and further injures that elbow or does something aggravated and then he ends up being out several weeks, not only are you not going to win that, it might end up costing you a lot more, right? Or if, heaven forbid he goes out there and actually does something that's going to cost him the rest of the season. Then now your season's done because you're certainly not going very far with Case Keenum.
Oh, my brother. Testify.
So I want to bring up another injury that happened this past week, and I'm bringing this up not so much for the injury itself, but for kind of the conversation around it, and that is Rashawn Gary with the Packers towards ACL,
Yep.
and it's kind of heightened this conversation that's been going on around the league about artificial turf versus grass.
Yep.
We've heard multiple coaches hate it, players hate it, but
Former
the
players.
NFL, yeah, former players hate it, fans hate it, or at least I hate it.
I do too.
So you know, when you start to look at it, the NFL wants to come out and say, oh, well, the incident of injuries is about the same on grass and turf. And what I want to point out here is it's about 50-50 now. That about half the teams in the league have turf, about half still have grass. And so what you were looking at is, to me, is the turf actually causing more of the injuries, even if it doesn't happen on turf? And what I mean by that is, 3 years ago, it was a significant difference. There were a lot more injuries happening on turf than on grass.
Mm-hmm.
So what I started to look at is, okay, over those 3 years, as we've gotten more teams with turf, is the wear and tear that the turf is causing on players' bodies causing more injuries, period, even if some of those injuries are happening on grass, were they a result of having to play on turf so often?
That's a question that they need to be looking into. But I'll tell you why they won't look into it. Because they don't want the outcome. They know what the outcome is. They know that the turf, just like the information was before, the turf is what's causing a lot of these injuries. It may not be the injury itself might not happen on the turf, but the beginnings of the injury is happening on this turf. Because what you get is you're playing on this turf, you can't cut naturally. There's a lot of things you can't do that you could on regular grass, right?
Yeah.
There's no give in turf like it is grass.
Mm-hmm.
So even if the ACL doesn't tear on the turf, if you get the beginnings of a small tear that you don't even notice, then you go out there on another turf field or a grass field, and that tear gets bigger until you get to that point where the actual tear happens that causes the issue and causes you to have to sit out. So you
Mm-hmm.
need to start doing more research on keeping up with these guys week by week, right? Just looking at how they playing, what's going on, really get into that type of thing. And see, the NFL does not want that to happen.
Yeah.
They already had to deal with the whole concussion fiasco. So
Mm-hmm.
they're trying to do everything they can to keep this type of thing that you're talking about from happening,
Yeah.
or that you're saying should happen. But I agree that that's something that should happen
Yeah.
because these players deserve better.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. What we know for a fact is that the incident of high ankle sprains, ACLs, Achilles, all that stuff has increased over the last several years. And yes, part of that probably has to do with guys getting bigger, stronger, faster, right?
Mhm.
But what else has changed in that time period? We've actually started introducing turf into the equation. And I think that it has to be something that actually gets really looked at and kind of see, because here's what people need to understand. Like, say if you go out and you do some running, right? And you go out and you're running on the beach in the sand. It's super tough to run in sand. But you know what? Your knees don't hurt when you run
Nope.
in sand because there's so much give there. And it's very similar when you're running on grass. You get a little bit more give with the soil, right? So your cleats can kind of dig in there, you get a little bit more give. On turf, you don't have that. So now your knees are actually taking all of that impact that's coming through your feet. And that's a lot of wear and tear. So even if you're not getting tears in that moment, you are weakening those joints. You're weakening those ligaments. You're weakening all those structures in there, so that when you do end up trying to cut and you don't get that give, or your foot doesn't quite turn the right way, your chances of getting injured have gone up significantly because everything was weakened.
Nope. And then the thing too is what else you want to always look at is I want to see what injuries are happening where, right? So we talk about all this the same amount of injuries, but let's break down the specific injuries. Let's break down MCL tears, ACL tears, turf toes,
Mhm.
whatever. I want to see how much of like the tears and the ligament damage is happening on these turf fields versus non-turf fields, because that could be a difference too. If you're getting turf toe on a regular field, if you're hurting your arm, you know, ankle sprains, that's one thing. But if you're tearing ligaments and doing more damage on these turf fields, then that tells you all you need to know. That's why
Yeah.
that research is being done.
Yeah, I also think that, it's worth looking into different types of turf because
True.
I do feel like when you look at some stadiums, we don't see a lot of injuries on their turf. But then there are other stadiums, like MetLife, which I think is probably one of the worst offenders where you see guys getting hurt. But like that material turf seems to be particularly problematic. So I think you got to kind of look at that too. Are there certain fields where you don't see it as often? And I also noticed like guys complain less on certain fields. Like the 49ers have to go play, the Rams obviously every year. And I never hear any complaints about the turf at SoFi Stadium out of my team, but yet when they have to go to other stadiums and play on turf, like like New York, usually you hear them guys comment a lot more on the turf. So to me, that also says there's a difference in the different field on the different turf types and how it impacts players because you hear them complain on certain fields, but not other ones.
Yeah, that makes sense too. Definitely. NFL, I know y'all watching. Do something about it.
Do something. Tell you who else better do something is Mr. Ezekiel Elliott better do something quick to get himself back on the field because he gonna mess around and Tony Pollard gonna be the new starting running back in Dallas.
Well, I have Tony Pollard in fantasy, man, so we can do that.
So you down for that, man?
I'm down for that. 10 toes down.
So good news if you're a Jonathan Taylor owner,
All in.
you'll be getting Jonathan Taylor back.
Yep. Bad news if you play someone who's a Jonathan Taylor owner, he'll be getting Jonathan Taylor back.
Yes. The only good news there is that he's got a rookie quarterback, so we'll see what happens with that. Man, the Raiders. This is a team that it just keeps getting worse for. They just put Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow both on IR.
Yep.
I mean,
It can get ugly.
yeah. I mean, I guess at least if you have Devontae Adams, his number should be going up because they're pretty much out of anybody else to throw the ball to at this point.
What do you mean, man? They're gonna throw the ball to Mac Hollins. Yeah.
Then you got Keenan Allen and Mike Williams both questionable this week. So
Well,
we will
Mike
see what
Williams
happens.
is actually gonna be out. He's gonna be out at least 2 more weeks.
Yes, that is
You
true.
asked me why I know that. That's a great question. Football leagues. I got Mike Williams. If I ever see you fight, sure, we have to fight. We don't have time for that in fantasy. We don't do that.
Well, listen, man, he can go ahead and stay on out this week because I have to talk about this injury that it is going to have an impact on my secondary. Um, and that's Jason Verrett. I mean, honestly, man, I just feel bad for the dude, really, because he didn't even get back on the field. This is a guy who has all the talent in the world, first round draft pick. He's now torn both ACLs and both Achilles, and he also missed a lot of time one season with a high ankle sprain. He's 31 now. It gets to the point, man. It gets tougher and tougher to try to bounce back from these things. It took him 18 months to even try to get back from the ACL. Literally gets out there, has a 3-week practice window. Everything seems good, and then his first official practice back, he goes out there and tears his Achilles. So I mean, yeah, it causes some issues for my secondary because we were hoping to get him in, but it's bigger than that, man. I feel bad for the dude because he's got a lot of talent, but he's just had such terrible luck with injuries.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate, man. Yeah, I hate to hear that from anybody.
Yeah, I mean that's
That's
just tough, man. And I do just want to call out, man. Like I understand a lot of 49ers fans, are kind of frustrated because they maybe feel like we should went ahead and went out and got somebody else. And I mean, I agree. I thought we should went and grab somebody just as a safety net. But to get up there and be, criticizing this dude and talking about him, like, come on, man, just have some respect. That's all I'm gonna say. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not like the dude like woke up that morning and said, "You know what? I think I'm gonna go tear my Achilles today."
Well, man, a lot of teams have bush league fans, and this is an example of that. That's all.
Yeah. So another big injury to talk about this week is Matthew Stafford, who is in the concussion protocol and is going to probably be a game time decision.
Matthew Stafford.
Yes. And as much as
I
we
knew
talk
when I
about the
had to
man Muppet,
pick you.
look, as much as we talk about the man Muppet, the Rams definitely do not want John Walford leading them this week.
I knew the moment that I had to draft him that this kind of crap was going to happen this year. I knew it. But him or Davis Mills or a couple of other guys I don't even want to name, like Marcus Mariota and stuff, as my starting quarterback. So I said, you know what? It's going to take the Pepsi plunge. I did it.
Yeah.
Buyer's remorse is definitely in effect.
So other just a couple quick
But
ones.
as far as the actual injury, man, I was gonna say as far as the actual injury, man, I hope dude's all right though.
Yeah.
All jokes aside, they already suck with him.
Yeah.
It'll be worse without him. I want him to be out there to win any excuses. You guys suck. The Ravens, blah 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 blah.
I mean, hey, listen, man. I'm normally all aboard having the Rams suck, but I think I'd rather just go and have them beat Arizona this week. So I'm good with we can get out there and being healthy enough to play. But so yeah, so we'll see. Commanders fans, sorry, you got to wait at least a little bit longer. It looks like to get Chase Young back on the field, but take your time with that. You know what I'm saying? I know, like y'all been winning a couple games, and you might be hopeful to get him back out there, but don't rush it. Don't be stupid.
Eagles fans are not mad about that.
I'm sure you're not. I'm sure you were not. But look, man, all
But it
jokes
doesn't matter, man,
aside.
because we haven't played anybody either way, right? We haven't played anybody, so
Oh, Woody got a message for you. Commanders get that dub on Philly.
And I have one response for him, and then you wake up. Or the alternative response, then you turn off your Xbox or PlayStation.
Where is he playing against Kyler Murray?
So what I envision the PlayStation or Xbox, I envision you going in, trading Jalen Hurts or benching Jalen Hurts, right? Making Devontae Smith your number one receiver, getting Jalen Rager back, you know what I'm saying? And then going out there and then playing with the Redskins, who you may have given Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown.
Wait. He says, I do wake up to text you, laugh out loud.
Well, just so you know, Whitty, man, you don't even have to text me after the game. Just do like you had to do earlier in the season and acknowledge us.
Acknowledge us.
That's all you got to do. Acknowledge us.
Man. So yeah, so we'll see, man. Lot of good stuff. So you got Whitty on the die laughing right now. So
I do think it's a more dangerous game than people think, though. I don't think it's a blowout. I said it the first time. I was wrong the first time, but yeah, I don't think so.
Well, man,
But we'll get to that.
the Eagles got one big thing going against them this week, and that is that they don't have Captain Emotional playing out there playing quarterback, so you don't have that to help you.
That's true. I mean, I said when Heineke got out of it, they automatically made this team a more serious team,
Yeah, but
an
I
actual
mean, I
threat.
still, yeah, I mean, I still think y'all are a better team, but that doesn't mean much this year, right?
Yeah, you just gotta go show it on Monday night.
Yeah.
And I
All right.
will
So
be cheap pop McFoley style. I will be doing on my Eagles Elite YouTube. I will be doing play by play of that game on Monday night.
yeah, I'm actually debating. I haven't decided yet, man. The 49ers Way podcast will be launching here pretty soon, and if not the Sunday night, hopefully the game next Monday night we'll be doing our first play by play. So it's the
Yeah.
beauty of having back to back primetime games. So
Oh, my brother.
what he says, things are looking up. Dan gonna get exposed. Jay-Z and Bezos gonna change the team name soon, and then bam, we knocked the Eagles to 8-1. We don't know what you've been drinking on today, but
Well, the first two things could possibly happen. But even if you get a new owner, even if you get a better name, we're still the ones and y'all still the twos.
maybe that could be their name. They could be the twos. The Washington, we the twos. All right,
The
all right, man.
Washington Unwinners.
All
Hey,
right,
the
man.
sad thing is that still doesn't sound.
With these he wants Red Wolves. It looks like we lost Coda for just a second. Oh, there you are. Are you back, man? All right. Well, I'm going to try to jump into these picks here in just a second, as soon as Cool's internet reconnects. This is what happens when you do a live show. Sometimes you're out traveling and internet connection is not the most stable, so it happens. We just persevere. So cool. I don't know if you're able to hear me or not. All right, looks like he is logging off, and give him just a second to get back on, and then we'll jump into these picks for the week and let you know who we think is going to win the games this week. Woody, I already know who you are picking to win the Commanders and Eagles game, so you have to let us know what your other picks are for the evening. All right, so I'm going to assume that Cole will be back on here shortly, and we will I'll just have him kind of catch up on whatever picks he misses here. So we have, oh, there he goes. Let's see. You back, man?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes. I can hear you, sir. Can you hear me?
Testing.
Yeah, we can hear you, sir.
Testing.
We can hear you. Clearly, he can't hear us.
All right, I gotta go up. Play for it.
We can hear you, man. All right, technical difficulties. So first game, the Seahawks versus the Bucks. This game is going to be at 9:30. They're playing in Germany. I have no idea what time that is in Germany. But what I do know is this. That is 6:30 in the morning for the Seattle Seahawks on their for their home time. I expect the Seahawks to look horrible in this game because of the time zone difference, and I'm going to go with the Buccaneers. Whitty is taking Geno with that dub. Not feeling it this week. Sorry.
I'm actually gonna agree with Whitty, and I'm gonna go with with that dub as well because he's getting it done. Tom Brady's wishy-washy at best. They barely won against a hapless Lions team last week, so you know what I'm saying. I'm gonna go with Seattle.
I don't disagree, man. But like I said, this game is basically at 6:30 West Coast time, so
I get it.
I don't see that going well. All right, so we got the Vikings at the Bills. So obviously this is one we're going to put a little asterisk next to and say with or without Josh Allen. So personally, I'm going to say if Josh Allen plays and is healthy, I'm going to go Buffalo. If Josh Allen's not out there, I don't trust Case Keenum to get the job done, and I think Minnesota ekes out a win.
I'm going to echo your sentiments.
What he says, it looks like Kurt Thuggins all day.
But we know Whitty is a Kirk First Cousins fan, so you know.
Bro, I got to just tell you, man. Side note, somebody posted this picture of Kirk Cousins, like with his little flannel shirt and everything on, and then they posted the picture of him on the plane. It tells us Kirk Cousins went from "I'll have her home at 9, sir" to "she calls me daddy too."
Pretty fast too, real quick.
Yeah. All right, we got the Lions at the Bears. I don't know if his playing style is sustainable, but they've figured out how to get the most out of Justin Fields right now. I'm taking the Bears.
Well, this is the game where if we could have a three-way and we had the Bengals in, we could say Lions, Tigers, and Bears. Oh my. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I think I'm going to actually go Lions on this one. I don't have a lot of faith in either actual full team. I think Fields is the better quarterback, but the Lions, I think, have the better running game, and this should be a game where they should have enough of an edge where they can, use that two-headed running back and, just attack them and do what they need to do.
So when he says Lions or Bears, who cares? I mean, I guess Lions and Bears fans.
That's a valid point, Willie. It's a valid point.
Yeah.
Valid point.
We got the Jags at the Chiefs. Going to go Chiefs on this one.
Let's not play. Yeah, let's not play. On to the next one.
All right, we got the Browns at the Dolphins. Gonna go Dolphins.
Definitely gonna go Dolphins.
Then we got the Texans at the Giants.
Definitely gonna go Giants with the bounce back.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Giants on that one too. We got the Saints at the Steelers.
That's a tough one to pick.
TJ Watt coming back this week.
Who is?
TJ Watt.
Steelers.
That was my logic too. I'm going to also go with Steelers.
I was going to go Steelers. I think either way.
So when he says Browns run it, he's picking the Browns over the Dolphins.
Hey man, somebody's got to have the kahunas, the grapefruits to do so, sir.
He also says the Andy Dalton's still throwing. I mean, listen, if you want to put faith in Andy Dalton, knock yourself out, Yeah,
Andy Dalton's still throwing to both teams. Yeah. He out there talking about two teams.
All right, so we got the Broncos at the Titans.
Upset pick of the week. I'm going Broncos.
I'm actually kind of thinking that after the bye week that they're gonna actually maybe be able to get some things figured out, get this offense moving a little bit. Uh, no disrespect to Lee Wills, but it's just not. He's not there yet. He's not ready. And when everybody knows that they can just basically go tackle Derrick Henry, the Titans' offense is struggling. So I'm actually picking the Broncos in this one. All right, do we got the Colts
What he
at the
said.
Raiders? Go ahead.
I'm gonna go Raiders. Um,
I'm going Colts. Jonathan Taylor's back. I think that's the difference. All right, we got the Cowboys at the Packers.
I ain't
I'm
hear
gonna
that one. My
have to go.
bad.
Oh, you good? I was saying Colts. I'm going Colts because Jonathan Taylor's back. That's gonna be the difference for me. And
I
then
got
we
you.
got the
I still,
Cowboys at the Packers. Woody's picking Jeff Saturday to upset everybody.
that's a possibility with it. I'm not buying into it, but it's a possibility. I'm gonna say, based on what we've seen, you got to go Cowboys in this game. The Green Bay Packers are the Brooklyn mess of the NFL right now. So
Uh,
you gotta go. You gotta go with the Cowboys just based on what you've seen.
remember earlier in the year when you were talking about certain teams, how you just always pick the other team. The Packers have become that team right now.
Yes, it's kind of hard to be a part of, but yeah,
Yeah.
you're not lying.
All right, we got the Cardinals at the Rams. I'm gonna say Matthew Stafford is questionable. That's gonna make it tough. They're struggling. They can't run the football. Arizona kind of usually has their number anyways, but that new Call of Duty did just drop,
Oh yeah.
so that makes this a little tough. But I'm gonna go Arizona.
Oh man. If Matthew Stafford clears concussion protocol, I'm going to go Rams. If
Okay.
he's not 100%, doesn't play the full game, I'm going to go Cardinals.
And just to be
Um,
clear, I'm going Cardinals either way.
I feel you.
I'm not
Um,
basing that on Stafford. So
I feel like he's good enough to beat this Cardinals team. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins will have like 125 yards. Kyler Murray will have like 285, 300 yards, and they'll still lose.
Whitty says the crybaby Murray is the worst. So Stafford or Wolf with a win. So he's actually taking the Rams regardless of who plays quarterback. All right.
Definitely. And shout out to Whitty the Green Ranger, man. I love it.
Love it, man. Love it.
You got
Sunday
to go
night
check
football.
out, see what I'm talking about.
So Sunday night football, we have the Chargers at the 49ers. Obviously, I'm going 49ers.
The Chargers have Jordan Palmer and a bunch of dudes I've never heard of before playing wide receiver because we know we cannot trust Keenan Allen. I'm gonna go 49ers too.
Okay. And the Monday night game, the Commanders at the Eagles. Well, we just lost Cool there for a second,
Fly,
but I'm just gonna go ahead and pick the Eagles for him because I know that's who he's gonna pick.
fly, Eagles, fly.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard me or not, but I was like, I'm just gonna go and pick the Eagles for him because that's clearly and
Fly, Eagles. That's why I just came with the fly, Eagles, fly. You
yeah.
already know what it is.
So Woody said, "Hey, Lady Ranger swag," and
Yes, sir.
he's picking the Commanders. So,
So what's funny is he's the green Liddy Ranger, right?
mhm.
But you picking the Commanders, they're not green.
Mm, you might need to change
I just want to throw that out there.
You might need to change color scheme, Witty. Might need to change your color scheme, bro. And then next Thursday, in a game of terrible, terrible quarterback play, possibly, we have the Titans at the Packers.
So, I mean, I have to invoke the new Stephen Box rule that until they show me differently. Titans.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I just talked about how the Titans' young quarterback is not quite ready to get out there just yet. He needs a little more seasoning. Uh, but they do have Derrick Henry, and unlike what I think might happen on Sunday, the Packers I don't think are going to be able to stop Derrick Henry. So I'm going Tennessee.
Yeah, and then Dobbs is even out for the Packers. You know what I'm saying? For at least a couple
Yeah,
more games. So,
yeah,
yeah,
and
they was
Aaron
already
Rodgers.
thin at wide receiver. They getting even thinner.
Yeah, and Aaron Rodgers is looking a little rough out there these days. So Witty asked a very good question. Who picked these Thursday games?
That goes with something else we were discussing this week. Here's the problem that you have. You try to make good matchups, but the team get their instinct. Like you look at a lot of the matchups. If you were looking at those matchups before the season, you're like, all right, we're gonna have a pretty decent set of.
I mean, look, I will say this.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back. You're back. I hear you now. It sounds like you were saying something about trying to make the matchups before the season.
Yeah, they try to, you try to make the matchups before the season, and you thinking they're gonna be good matchups based on how the teams finished the year before, but it just doesn't work. Like, I think you gotta figure out some way where you can flex Thursday games, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, you gotta do this weeks in advance. It can't be like the week of, or maybe you just start looking at having a lot of divisional games on Thursdays. And hey, if it's bad, it's bad. But I think you have to do a better job, and I think divisional games would be the biggest way to kind of resurrect it quickly. Just put divisional games on, because even if one team's a lot better than the other team, you're playing divisional games, you normally get a better game out of them. I think that's about the only thing I can really think of, without some type of flex or some type of just over the top foolishness. You just got to put divisional games on every Thursday.
Yeah, I mean that might be a good option, because I mean, well, at least in theory, because I mean, let's be honest. I mean, last night was a divisional game. Wasn't that great?
Yeah, but I mean, it was balanced, right? You weren't out there talking about how one team was horrible and the other team was great.
So
and they were playing in the monsoon to give them both a little bit of grace.
Yeah, and to be completely fair to the schedule makers for this upcoming game, right? I mean, at the beginning of the season, you're looking at the Titans, you're thinking, okay, they got some young receivers, but they got Derrick Henry. They are a team that made the playoffs last year. They were actually in position to be the 1 seed for at one point. Did they actually finish with the 1 seed? I don't remember now.
I think they did.
And then, they always play good defense. The Packers' defense was supposed to be really good this year. You had a two-headed monster at running back. You had Aaron Rodgers. I mean, yeah, you had some question marks at wide receiver with Devontae Adams leaving. But no one would have honestly expected these two teams to be bad. And, the Titans, despite, what they've looked like here the last couple of weeks, are 5-3 on the season. So, in fairness to the schedule makers, this on paper at the beginning of the season seemed like a good matchup. This would have been one you would have circled and be like, oh, there goes actually a good Thursday game. But
that's what I'm saying.
But some of these Thursday games, I don't know what you were thinking. Like you should have known that game was going to be bad to begin with.
You got to do divisional Jones, man. I think that's the saving grace, because they should be better. Like, even though the game last night wasn't great, we had some games early in the season that it runs circles around.
Yeah. And the funny thing about it, man, is like sometimes, the games that we think are going to be bad end up actually being competitive. For example, y'all's game against the Texans. That's a game that on paper, everyone just assumed, even before the season would have assumed that was going to be a bloodbath, right?
Yeah.
and it actually be a pretty competitive game. So it's hard to judge what games are going to be like beforehand, but yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe making them divisional might be the answer to it. Along those same lines, I'm gonna go ahead and say, I'm gonna give credit to Craig here, man, who filled in the show a couple weeks ago. He actually made a point of saying, "Look, we can't have another situation like what we had the Broncos this year, where they play like 5, 6 primetime games to open up the season, and they were horrible. You really can't do that, man. Like, you got to start making it to where maybe every single team in the league gets a primetime game in the first 8 weeks, and nobody can play more than one. And so, at least by the time you start having teams play multiple primetime games, there's the ability to flex them out if they're garbage."
Well, real talk. The problem is they overhyped Russ. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to disrespect Russell Wilson because he's a great all time quarterback. This year is horrible,
Yep.
but like you know what I'm saying, he's a great all time quarterback. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I feel like when you got to do it like that, man, they just bought into the hype. They got so hyped about him that they was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, they're gonna be so much better with him, and they just, for lack of a better word, they just overshot. You know what I'm saying? They lied on making these games because it clearly was not thought out properly and did not make a lot of sense.
Yeah. So, Damian Hernandez actually said that the problem is the NFL makes these schedules every 10 years, which is stupid. And then Woody said, "I'm sure businesses benefit from Thursday night football, but I just don't enjoy Thursday night games. I'm cool with Monday and Sunday." I mean, me personally, I'm not a fan of the Thursday night games. I know a lot of people feel like, hey, can never have enough football. I feel like generally speaking, we end up with bad football on Thursdays because a lot of times you got guys coming just played on Sunday. You're asking them to come back out there 4 days later and play another game, and that doesn't usually lend to quality football, regardless of the two teams that are put on the field. So I personally would be okay with just getting rid of Thursday night football altogether. It's not going to
Yeah.
happen, but I would be perfectly okay with that.
Well, a reduced schedule might be a beneficial thing too.
Yeah, we know that's not
Instead
going
of
to happen.
having like instead of having a full 16 weeks, 17 weeks or whatever, maybe we reduce it back. Because you remember back in the day when they first started doing Thursday night football, it wasn't every week.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you
Yeah,
could
it
go
was
out
like,
there and chill a little bit. Yeah, you might just have like major matchups certain weeks. Um, but I think like the ability to flex has got to be incorporated somehow. That's got to happen.
yeah. Yeah, so just real quick to address this comment about the NFL making a schedule every 10 years. One thing to kind of keep in mind is that the NFL doesn't really make the schedule for that period. What they do is they make sure that you're going to play every other team in the league at least once within a certain amount of time,
Yeah.
both home and on the road. And the other thing about that is you do have to play teams that finish in the same position as you in the other conferences. So the
Hmm.
schedules aren't really set per se. Um, there's a formula to it, which means that at the end of the day, the NFL doesn't really get to decide sometimes what those matchups are going to be. They just get to decide when those
Yeah.
matchups are actually played. Versus like college
Right.
football, where they actually literally schedule games like 5, 6 years down the road. And it's like you don't even know if you're gonna be
Yeah.
good then. So, but yeah, man, I mean, it's definitely something we're gonna see. And as I think as the NFL continues to push for games in Germany and Mexico and London, there at some point we're gonna have to make some changes, right? You're having all these different games in different time zones, and you're trying to figure out how you're gonna give people proper bye weeks and all this other stuff. And to me, you can't continue to talk about player safety and then run people ragged by making them fly all over the place and play in different time zones. I mean, like, look, I have no pity for the Seahawks, right? As a 49ers fan. But to ask a West Coast team to get up and play basically at 6:30 in the morning is ridiculous. I don't care that the game's being played in Germany. It's going to take you more than a couple of days to adjust
Yeah.
your body to a time zone, and then you got to adjust it back when you come back. By the way, Woody said every week is too much. Maybe once a month would be cool. Then it's like an event, and probably more people watch it. I think Cool said divisional match once a month would be dope. Um, I mean, listen, I'm above the opinion that we can just the only Thursday game we need to play is Thanksgiving.
Or even like every other week. I mean, something like you got to do something different. Like what you putting out there now, it's not working. Like I've watched less Thursday night games this year than any year I can remember because they're just not good. Like last year, we had a couple of bad ones. You're like, it is what it is. You kind of knew those up front, but a lot of them were pretty decent. Even the Eagles and Chiefs last year was a decent game. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But these games this year, it was like the Texans and the Eagles this year, pretty much. But even like you got to figure out something.
Yeah.
Like you got to figure out how to work things where it's different. Maybe you take away some of these Thursday games and put those games as those early games in overseas and all these different places you want to go. Maybe that's the move. Maybe you do every other week a Thursday game, and then you have every other week a 9 a.m. game somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Maybe that's something. And you
I'm,
got to get these. You
yeah.
got to schedule these overseas games where they're coming off a bye or they're going on a bye.
Yeah.
And I really think you should do coming off a bye just because you're asking people to fly all across the. You know what I'm saying? You're
Yeah.
messing up everybody's schedules. You either got it before or definitely after. Get these teams a bye so they can get their minds back and their bodies back right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm happy that my team gets the benefit of the international game that we're playing in this year is against Arizona and it's in Mexico. So at least that's, kind of the same time zone and the travel schedule is not that brutal. So
Yeah.
I mean but for a lot of these teams, man, it's not working out like that. So Damien did actually comment that said all primetime games are boring. There's not one primetime game we've had in years of all these Sunday night, Monday night, and Thursday night that have been boring within at least the last 6 years. I mean, I'm gonna sit here and say I can't recall top of my head every single primetime game that's been played in the last 6 years, but I feel very confident in saying that there's been at least a couple of entertaining primetime games in the last 6 years.
Yeah.
Now, if you're not entertained by them, that's fine. I mean, I'm just saying for me, I'm sure that there's been at least a couple I've been entertained by, but at the end of the day, man, it always comes down to matchups, right? It's always about players. I mean, we always love to see superstars. And the reality is, if you kind of grew up in a period where you were watching, Tom Brady and Peyton Manning go at it, it might be hard for you to get excited about some of these games, right? But I mean, more a recent game that I know people were excited about was the Bills and the Chiefs. That was a primetime game, if I'm not mistaken. It was a Sunday night game, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah. So I mean, Mahomes, Josh Allen was a matchup that I definitely think people were excited about. But I think right now, kind of where the NFL is we're getting a lot of parity. We're getting a lot of teams that are playing good team football, but we don't have a large number of superstars like maybe what we've had in the past. There's some guys that are heading in that direction, but they're still a little too early in their career to be there. So we kind of had this like awkward passing of the torch stage right now, where the next generation isn't quite raised herself up to that point, and the older generation is, let's be honest, they're a little too old now. Looking at you, Tom
Factual.
Brady and Aaron Rodgers.
You should be.
All right, man. Any final closing thoughts before we sign off for the evening?
I am good. I've said everything I could possibly say.
All right, man. Well, with that,
And
man,
a
I
little bit
would
more.
I would just throw out there, appreciate everybody tuning in tonight, especially those of you in the chat. Whether we agree with your opinions, don't agree with your opinions, always appreciate the fact that you get on here and express them. So much love and appreciation for you tuning in, being a part of the show tonight. If you haven't already, please go ahead and hit the like button because that helps to let YouTube know that this is a good show and that other people should tune in, and that helps get it shared out there. So we would definitely appreciate that. And we will see you back next Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.